Hello. Hi guys, I wanted to talk to you some about doing your MLA Rough Draft. Okay, so going back to the Prezi that you have in your folder, in your assignment folder, just a little bit of review. So we started with sources a while ago. Then we moved to sources, putting them down, giving them numbers, things like that. I realize you didn't do cards, but it's the same idea. And then you listed out your facts and you connected each of those facts to a source card. So you should be all set there. And then we just finished the outline. By the way, I have made comments on those and graded them. So you should be ready to go there. All right, so I want to talk about the actual paper. So here are a few things that you need to know about making this a paper. First of all, here are the 4 sections of your paper. And how you can break these down is the intro can be about half a page, the opposing and supporting side can be about a page each, and the conclusion can be about half a page, and that gives you 3 pages. Now this is a 3 to 4 page paper, which means you need to get all the way through page 3 on to page 4. I won't take more than on to page 5, so you need to keep this short, keep it within the assignment length. No more than on to page 5 total, okay? When you're writing this, of course, you need to spend your time thinking about logos, so your logic. Be very careful not to do a whole lot of pathos, so don't be very emotional. Also, don't forget about these words we've been talking about all semester. You want to make sure you keep these out of your paper. You can do Control F will allow you to search your paper for these words. So if you hit Control and then the F key at the same time, it will pop up with a box and you're able to search those words in your paper, and so you can see if you have any of them. All right, so there's just a little bit about the paper itself. So let me go back to our next. Let me go to our next one here. Okay, so then about the formatting, you can see this looks very familiar. 1-inch margins. In the top left, your name, my name, class, date. And in the top right, last name, page number, everything Times New Roman 12, and everything double spaced. You do not do a cover page. MLA doesn't use cover pages. So just do the normal formatting like you're used to doing. All right. So then what do you put in the intro and conclusion? Well, here are some ideas. Of course, there are other options, but these are just a few ideas for you. So you can give us some background information, maybe some things we need to know, some pieces of information, maybe some facts you have. They're really just background information. You can establish your ethos, that is your ethics or credibility. So you could tell us, why you have some credibility in this particular area. Maybe you have some education in this area or have some personal experience. So that would work. Also, this is the place to define your terms. If you're using a specific term in your paper, especially if it's one that your argument revolves around, then you want to consider defining those. So that is, if you're talking about Syrian refugees, you probably should define what a refugee is. Things like that. Also, if you're planning on using acronyms, you want to make sure that you define those. So, for example, if I was using the term AI, which in this case I would use to stand for artificial intelligence. The way you would use that in your paper is the first time you want to use that term, you would actually write it out. Okay, and then in parentheses, you would put AI. Then every other time you use that in the paper, you can just use AI. But you do have to identify what that acronym means the first time you use it. And of course, you want to make sure you put your thesis. Please remember that thesis needs to have 2 sides to it, as well as show which side that you support. So something to the effect of, even though runners are experimenting with zero drop shoes and minimalist shoes, traditional running shoes are the best choice for most runners. Something like that. All right, then in the conclusion, a couple things you can do. Wrap up your argument. Give us some kind of call to action. That is, what do you want us to do now that we've read this? Maybe that is vote or call your congressman or something like that. Also, where do you see this issue in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What does the future look like? And another option that I don't have actually listed on here is some kind of call to research. That is, was there some place you felt like there wasn't enough information and you think that more research needs to be done before we can make a decision in some particular area? So there's some ideas for the intro and conclusion. Now we're going to talk about the body of the paper. All right, so here are some things you need to know about making this, or about filling out the body of the paper. First of all, each body paragraph needs to have a topic sentence that is a main idea for that particular paragraph. And you also need to make sure that you have some kind of transition with it as you move from paragraph to paragraph so we can see how the ideas are connected to each other. By the way, topic sentences should not be research-based. These should be your words, so don't give us facts for topic sentences. Your facts are supporting details. All right, so facts and also warrants, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. Please remember, most of your facts should be summarized. If you do need to quote, remember, quote sparingly. Use your words as often as possible because this is your paper. And if you need to use maybe just a phrase or a small part to quote because there's no other way to say a specific statistic or a particular technical term, just put that term or that number in parentheses and make the rest of the sentence your own words. Either way, remember that you still must cite facts that you borrow. And that is, it's not about borrowing people's words, but it is about borrowing their ideas. So even if you put the information in your own words, you still have to cite it. All right, so keep that in mind. Okay, so that's what needs to happen in each body paragraph. So let's talk about that in a little more detail. Now, and specifically, how do you use these facts? How do you put them in your paper in an appropriate way so that you don't plagiarize? Okay, so here's what you need to know. This is the key right here, how to do an in-text citation. Remember I told you, every time you have a fact, the idea is borrowed. And typically you'll know that for this paper because I had you write out your facts. So if you wrote out that fact, you know you need to cite it because you got it from a source, even if you put it in your own words. So the basic format to do a citation is this: ICP. That is information, citation, and then punctuation. So let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, if you put these three together, that gives you an appropriate way to cite. So give me your fact, give me your info, then give me your citation, and then put your punctuation. The reason the punctuation goes out here is because this citation actually only applies to the sentence it touches. Okay? It actually becomes part of that sentence. So it doesn't apply to the sentence before, it can't apply to the sentence after, it only applies to the sentence that it's touching. So the period goes out here. There is one exception to that rule, and let me switch this here so you can see it. The only piece of punctuation that goes on the inside is the quotation marks. The reason that we don't put the quotation marks out here is that it looks like you're citing your source, or you're quoting your source, which you're not doing. That would be silly. So we don't want to look like we're quoting our citation, so we don't put the quote marks out there. All right, so I'm going to erase these. The quote marks go inside, but there are no commas, periods, question marks, exclamation points, or anything else that goes here. It all goes over here. That includes any punctuation that would have been inside a quote. Okay, so no end punctuation goes here. It all goes out here. Okay, so what goes inside this citation? Well, here are... Actually, I'm going to go ahead and make that a different color. Here we go. Typically, what goes inside this citation, or yes, this in-text citation, is whatever comes first on the works cited citation, which you should already have those done because you typed out your sources. Typically, that will be an author's last name, right? That's usually what we put first on a works cited citation, so that's what goes in here. If you don't have an author, what you would put first on your citation is a title. And usually that title needs to go in quotes if it's an article. Okay, so we either put an author's last name or a title, and then a page number if we have one. Please remember, don't make up page numbers. It needs to be the page numbers of the original source. So if you don't have the original page numbers from where it was originally published, then you just don't have page numbers. Don't tell me all your facts came from page 1. Okay? So it may look something like this. So here's my fact, and then I have Smith, and maybe 23, like that. Plain and simple. Once you type the fact, you just pull up the source card that it attaches to, whatever that first piece of information is, usually an author's last name. Sorry, my battery's dying. Then that's what you put here, and then if you have a page number. If you don't have a page number, you just put the last name. Now here's something you do need to know. If you have multiple authors, you do have to list them all. So maybe it looks like this. Smith and Jones. 23. Okay, so that's if you have 2. If you have 3, you do something like this. Snap, crackle, and pop. Okay, so that's what 3 authors look like. If you hit 4 authors, so if your source has 4 or more authors, you just do this. You type Smith et al. Okay, et al means and the others. That's what you would do on your works cited citation as well. So if you have 4 authors or more, you would put this. That's also what you do in your works cited citation. Okay, so it just needs to match up. If you have 2 authors in your works cited citation, you need to put both of their last names in here. If you don't have an author and you have a title, then you would just put the title, a short form of the title. Sometimes these titles are really long. So you just put a short form of the title, put it in quotes because it's an article, and that maybe that fact came on page 23. And so you put that and then my period. Plain and simple. Now, there is one question that a lot of people run into, and that is, what if I have 3 facts in a row that all come from the same source? What do I do then? Do I put a citation after every single one of those sentences? So it would be like sentence, Smith 2, sentence, Smith 2, sentence, Smith 2. That would be silly. And MLA says, no, you don't do that. You do this right here, and that is you just put a signal phrase before it. Okay, so a signal phrase is something like, according to, in the article, so-and-so writes, and basically it signals to the reader, here's where the research starts, and then the end citation says, and here's where it finishes. So, I have my signal phrase, then I give my multiple facts, these are all sentences, okay, however many you need, and then you give your end citation, and then the very last piece of punctuation. So the signal phrase says, here's where it starts, and then it says, all right, here's the end of that research. So let me show you an example. You can see here in the article, Little Girls or Little Women, the Disney Princess Effect. So there's my signal phrase. And then the author notes that many Disney princesses are scantily clad, such as Aladdin's Jasmine. So there's my information. All right, and then I have my citation, and then you can see my punctuation right there. So that's what that looks like. The one thing you do need to know is whatever goes in this citation cannot be the same as the signal phrase. All right, and you only need to use a signal phrase if you have multiple sentences in a row that you want to use the same citation for. So whatever goes here has to match the works cited citation. You don't get a choice here. This can be whatever you want it to be. So if I put Smith here, I can't put Smith up here. All right, so if I put Smith here, maybe I put the title here. If I have to put the title here, maybe I put the name of the journal that it comes from here. All right, so maybe in the Journal of Sports Medicine, and then I give 3 or 4 sentences that I want to summarize from there. And then I would put Fast Runner 23, okay, if I have to use a title. So there's an example. There's a couple of examples. If you have more questions about how to do in-text citations, where you want to go is Al Purdue. If you Google Al Purdue MLA, this is where you come, and they have a whole page on in-text citations, okay? And you can see that right there, and so here's a whole page on in-text citations. So if you have a question about an in-text citation, you can always look there. All right. There's one last thing we need to add to all of this, and that's what I was talking about before, and that is the idea of a warrant. So here's what I mean by this. The idea with the warrant is that you want to explain how your facts and your topic sentences go together. So you have this topic sentence, right? And then you give all these facts. The problem is you need to show how they're connected together. So, for example, in this example I have here, my topic sentence is little girls are exposed to over-sexualization at an early age. Then I've given you this fact here, and that is, in the article Little Girls or Little Women, the Disney Princess Effect, the author notes that many Disney princesses are scantily clad, such as Aladdin's Jasmine. The problem is, how does this fact prove this topic sentence? How does the fact that Jasmine dresses the way she does show that these little girls are exposed to over-sexualization? Well, that's my job as the writer to show the connections, and so that's what you get right here. This is my warrant. And what that is that connection between my facts and my topic sentence. And so you can see it says here, young girls see these princesses as heroes, and they want to mimic their actions and dress, even their off-the-shoulder dresses and dark kohl eyeliner. Jasmine's like 13 or 14 years old, and she doesn't dress very modestly for a 13 or 14-year-old. So the fact that these little girls want to dress like Jasmine proves my point that I'm making up here. So the warrant is the key to a solid research paper. If you want to have that A paper, this is what you got to have. Now, you can't just give me topic sentence and then dump a bunch of facts. You got to make the connections for your readers so we see how these facts prove the points as you're trying to make. All right, so there's the basics of putting together a research paper. If you have any questions, feel free to holler at me or always see Al Purdue. All right, happy writing.